Let's take a look at this Sigma 28 to 200 millimeter macro lens. Hey, what's up you guys? Nick here. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Nick. I'm a professional photographer. I've been shooting professionally for about 4 years now, though I've had a camera in my hand for the last 16. And we are out here with Ariana, playing around with the Nikon D50 with a Sigma 28 to 200 macro lens. Let's see what kind of photos we can get and review this lens, you guys. So as you guys probably saw from my introduction when we talked about being out and shooting with Ariana, we are shooting with the Sigma 28 to 200 millimeter Aspherical IF lens. Now this is a macro lens made by Sigma. It was released sometime in the early 2000s. I could not find an actual release date for it. I don't know why, but I could not find an actual release date for it, and it covers a wide range of focal lengths from 28 millimeter, which is relatively wide angle, to 200 millimeter, which is a nice zoom effect. I got this lens from my grandfather when I purchased the Nikon D70, and I'll link my review to the Nikon D70 right up there. Now, this lens right here does have a pretty good macro range. At 28 millimeter, it's 1 to 1.2, and I'll put a little thingy down there. And at 200 millimeter, it is a 1 to 4.1, and that's how much of the image covers the sensor. I don't know exactly how that works because I am not a macro photographer, though I would like to get into it. So I want to talk a little bit more about this lens. These lenses can be picked up between 70 and 80 bucks on eBay. I checked just now and they're all over eBay for about that much. Now this lens primarily I used for landscape photography, and I'm going to show a couple examples of the landscape photography that I have done with this lens. I used it on my Nikon D70s full spectrum conversion, and I'll link my video about that right above. This is an f3.4 to f5.6 lens. At 28 millimeter, you can stop down all the way to f3.4, and at 200 millimeter, you can stop down all the way to f5.6. As you zoom in and zoom out, it will automatically change the f-stop on the camera. It's just the way a lot of telescopic lenses work, especially on the cheaper side of things. More expensive telescopic lenses made by Nikon and by Canon will actually hold an f-stop all the way through their full range. Those lenses are extremely expensive, especially when you get down to the f1.4s and the f1.8s. So I went out and I wanted to do a portrait session because, again, I am not a macro photographer. I would like to get into macro photography, so if you guys got any tips for me, comment them down below. But I am not a macro photographer, I'm a portrait photographer, so I wanted to see how it worked as a portrait lens. Now, one of the great things I love about macro lenses is you're able to get extremely close to the model in order to get a shot. What I mean by that is I have about 3 feet, I believe, on the Yongnuo 50 millimeter. I can get up to 3 feet to 2 foot, and it'll still focus, but anything closer, it will not focus. Whereas this one, I can get within 8 inches of the object I want to focus on and be able to focus on it and get some good sharp images. Now, that's what's great about macro lenses. You can get those really cool eye shots like this one right here. Now, one of the things that I do not like about this lens is it has autofocus, but you can only autofocus with a camera with a built-in autofocus motor, such as our Nikon D50, our Nikon D70, the Nikon D70s, and the Nikon D80 all have built-in focus motors as far as the older ones are concerned. The newer full frames all have internal focus motors as well, because I believe the Nikon D40 was the first consumer camera made by Nikon that did not have that internal focus motor. The other thing I don't like about this lens is it's slow. And what I mean by that is it focuses extremely slow. Generally, when I'm working with a model, if you've seen any of my videos before, you know that I shoot pretty fast. I like to line up the shot, and every time the shutter clicks, I have the model change pose. It's one of the exercises I use and one of the ways I get some pretty amazing shots. This one is super slow to focus. I deleted more photos using this lens than I have with a lot of other lenses that I've used, and that's because a lot of stuff was out of focus, and that was because the focus motor is extremely slow. It is not a fast focusing lens, and it is not a quiet focusing lens. It is extremely loud. Now, what I do love about this lens is its price and the clarity of the images that I was able to capture when it did focus. And as you've probably seen throughout the B-roll when I'm posting up the photos as we're talking about this camera, I was able to actually capture some really amazing shots. And for those of you who are wondering about the cool vaporwave pinkish bluish ones, we're going to do an entire series where we go out and do a vaporwave shoot where we are aiming at capturing that vaporwave look from the 80s and 90s, and then I'll walk you through the editing process for all of that. We discuss a lot about budget lenses and getting into photography on the cheaper side. So if you're looking at getting into macro photography and you have a body that has a built-in focus motor, I would definitely recommend this, but out of 10 stars, really, I would give this lens probably a 6 or 7, which I think is the lowest reviewed item I've ever done on this channel, except for maybe the cheap Amazon tripod. I'll link that video right up there. 6 to 7 stars. Just because of how slow it is to focus, when you're zoomed all the way in or you're zoomed all the way out, you get some softness around the edges of your photos. I had to crop a lot more photos than I normally would because of that softness. Now I expect that at the wide angle. At 28mm, I expect a little bit of softness around the edges. So before we jump too far into this video, I do want to remind you guys that I am giving away a Nikon N80 35mm film camera. Now I know I switch between the two when I do these little ads. I do have 2 of them, and I will be giving away probably this one. This one's got a lot more shutter count on it than this one does, and I want to be able to make sure that I get a camera out that's going to function and work for you as a 35mm camera. Now as of recording this, we are at 777, which is a cool little number. Subscribers, we're probably at more by the time this video does come out. So at 1,000 subscribers, I'm giving away this Nikon N80 35mm film body. That way you guys can go out and have some fun with 35mm film. At 1,000 subscribers, I'm also going to update and announce the new giveaway, because we are going to have another giveaway after 1,000 subscribers. So let's get back in and start talking about that Sigma a little bit more. But fully zoomed in at 200mm, I should not have the amount of softness that I do have. Now, if you're using an older manual one, because this lens came out right in between the digital to film transition, if you're using an older manual camera, this does have an f-stop ring, so you can stop it down from 3.5 all the way up to 22mm with that f-stop with the manual f-stop ring, which is a pretty cool feature you don't see on a lot of cameras anymore, though I do believe some of the E-mount Sonys still have that capability. So yeah, 6 out of 7, the price is really good. If you're into macro photography and you have more patience than I do, I would definitely say that this is a good, cheap starter lens in order to get into it, to kind of learn about macro photography and really start getting into it and figuring out what works best for you. One of the last concerns I have that I want to mention is if you're doing macro photography, a lot of macro photographers I've seen on YouTube and in person, you know, will aim the camera straight down to try to get a picture of a bug or water droplets or whatever else they're trying to capture, and when there is no zoom lock on this. So when you hold it straight down, it zooms by itself. Now, if you're doing the full 200mm zoom, it doesn't make a difference. But if you're trying to shoot anywhere between 28 and 200mm, the lens is going to automatically zoom itself in, which could be a major problem. Again, 6 to 7 out of 10 stars. The price and the fact that it is autofocus capable and it does work for close-up focus, I would say that this is a decent lens if you're just getting into macro photography or you're looking for a lens that'll kind of cover a wide swathe of focal length at that 28 to 200mm. If you're looking for something to really step up your game, if you have a higher budget, I would recommend looking at the higher end Sigmas and Tamrons. And if your budget is much more than that, I would definitely recommend going with the Nikkor or the Canon brand, you know, 30 to 200mm or even the 70 to 200mm. Those are both fantastic lenses. I've rented them for wedding photography. They do a fantastic job. Not within my budget. So, would I recommend this? At 6 to 7 out of stars, if you're just getting into photography, if you're just trying out macro photography, or you're looking for a cheap lens that covers a wide swathe of area while you learn your camera, learn composition, and everything like that, I would say this is a great lens for that. If If you have a little bit higher of a budget, I would step up to a proper Sigma or a proper Tamron. That's a step above this Sigma right here. Again, it is an older lens and you can find them cheap on eBay, but it's hard to justify it. But if you have a little bit more in your budget, I would definitely avoid this lens. So I want to thank you guys again so much for joining me on this video about the Sigma. I know it was a little bit more of a downer than my normal reviews. As most of my normal reviews, I have nothing but positive things to say about what I'm reviewing. This one, sadly, I don't have as much positive things to say about, but I did try to find the positives behind the lens. Now, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you want to recommend a video idea to me, hit me up down in the comments. Check out any of my social medias. I have a Twitter, an Instagram, a Facebook. I will answer any messages or comments that I get. So if you have a video idea or anything like that, let me know and I will do my best to answer that. And before we go, don't forget I do have merch available. This, again, is one of my favorite shirts. I wear this one all the time. I have a link for this shirt down in the description below, as well as to both my Teespring and my Redbubble. Hit those up if you would be so kind. All the money from t-shirts sold has gone back into the channel. We were able to get my drone repaired. If you didn't see that short, there it is. And we're gonna be able to go out and do some more crazy adventures in photography with the money so far from t-shirts sold. So thank you guys again so much. You have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll catch you all on the flip side. Bye!